Eu sou o Luiz, esse aqui é o canal RetroGamer Brasil. Olha só que legal que vai ser o vídeo de hoje. Eu consegui entrevistar Tom Kalinske. Para quem não conhece Tom Kalinske, ele foi um dos nomes mais importantes da história dos videogames. Tom é um alto executivo, um cara extremamente inteligente, que foi presidente durante muitos anos da Mattel, inclusive tendo sido o cara que salvou a Barbie. Na época a Mattel ela não estava muito feliz com a performance da Barbie, o Tom era diretor de marketing, ele foi consultado pela fundadora da Mattel e ele fez todo um plano para recuperar, e a Barbie virou o fenômeno que virou depois. Ele também foi o cara por trás do lançamento dos bonecos do He-Man no mercado americano, que depois se transformaram também num sucesso no mundo inteiro. Só que aí em 1990, o Tom foi chamado para trabalhar na Sega dos Estados Unidos, porque o que acontecia na época, a Sega não conseguia fazer sucesso no mercado americano. A Nintendo nadava de braçada, a Sega já tinha lançado o Mega Drive nos Estados Unidos, mas não conseguia fazer o console emplacar. Aí o presidente da Sega do Japão, que já conhecia o Tom e sabia que ele era um cara extremamente ambicioso, né, um cara muito ousado, um cara com uma visão muito legal, ele foi buscar Tom Kalinske numa história muito interessante. O Tom estava passando férias com a família dele no Havaí e o presidente da Sega foi até o Havaí, encontrou Tom com a família na praia, lá fez a proposta, convidou ele para ir para o Japão, o Tom fez e aí começou uma história muito legal. Resumo dessa história: o Tom muito rápido colocou um plano super agressivo para o Mega Drive, né, o Genesis nos Estados Unidos, começar a crescer, começar a se desenvolver. Em poucos anos o Genesis conseguiu assumir a liderança do mercado, desbancando a Nintendo, e aí fez esse cara se consagrar como um dos maiores executivos da indústria de videogame de todos os tempos. A Sega conseguiu sustentar ali por alguns anos a liderança no mercado americano, até a chegada ali da quinta geração, quando ela voltou a se atrapalhar um pouco. Em 1996, Tom acabou saindo da empresa, principalmente por discordar de algumas decisões da Sega do Japão. Quando eu mandei essa mensagem para ele, convidando para uma entrevista, o cara foi extremamente atencioso, ele aceitou na hora e em menos de uma semana a gente já estava batendo um papo e vocês vão ver que ele foi muito simpático, muito atencioso. Então eu espero que vocês curtam demais essa conversa com Tom Kalinske, o cara que desbancou a Nintendo nos Estados Unidos. Vamos lá.
Hi there.
Hi, Tom.
How are you, Liz?
I'm good. Hey,
Good.
thanks. I'm so happy that you accepted my invitation.
No, my pleasure. Gee, you got a lot of games behind you.
Yeah, so I have let me show you. I have a game room that is my paradise here. You
Oh
see?
my goodness.
Yeah.
Well,
This is
I
my
have I'm in my office above a garage right now, but in my basement I have a game set up as well, and I have about 200 Sega Genesis games.
wow,
Yeah,
200.
yeah.
So that was one of the questions that I would do to you, like if you keep some games, but it seems like you still have like a collection.
Yeah, I don't play much
Yeah.
anymore, but I have a collection.
Oh, that's nice. Good to hear. So, well, thanks a lot. I know you have a super busy agenda, but I'm happy that you are here.
Well, thank you. And I saw that you're going to interview Stefano Arnold as well, and I
Yeah,
remember him very fondly. He's a great guy. He did a lot for Sega in Brazil. We had a very good relationship. I can't remember the name. There was a gal in marketing that worked with him. I can't remember her name, but the two of them were very powerful for the video game industry in Brazil.
yeah. No, he was. I'm super happy. I will interview him tomorrow. But what he did in Brazil, the way that I think a lot of things similar to what you did in Sega of America, because he was very entrepreneurial, but he challenged the status quo. He brought like a very aggressive marketing strategy behind, and very bold guy with bold ideas. He convinced Sega to launch a lot of exclusive titles
Yeah,
in Brazil, like the Street Fighter for the Master System. Brazil is the only country that has this game. So the
huh.
guy was really bold. I
Yeah,
love
he
it.
was. He was.
Yeah. All right. So this is a very special moment for the channel because I have a guest who is one of the most influential personalities in the history of video game. He was the CEO of Mattel, Matchbox, Sega of America. So here with us, we have the legend, the man who shook Nintendo in the United States, Mr. Tom Kalinske.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
No, I'm super happy, Tom. I'm super grateful that you accepted my invitation for this interview. it's a pleasure to have you here. So officially now, welcome to the RetroGamer Brazil channel.
Thank you.
Okay, and Tom, I think that to start this conversation, so this is a video game YouTube channel, and I'm sure that my followers, they want to know more about your time as the CEO of Sega. However, before Sega, you had leadership positions in Mattel and Matchbox. So a lot of nice and powerful stories that I saw in the Console Wars book and the documentary. That, just to mention an example, that you said there that you saved Barbie, that Barbie had a chance to be put out of the game, and then you saved Barbie. What is a big story that you have there. But these two companies, Mattel and Matchbox, they are also focused on kids and teens. So it's undeniable that you have mastered this audience. In the Console Wars documentary, Shinobu Toyoda refers to you as the prince of toy business, what is really, really cool. So what is the insight behind this successful trajectory that you built in this segment for this specific audience? And is there something special from your childhood that you brought to your professional life?
Well, that's an interesting question. My father was a engineering professor, university professor, and my mother was an artist, and so it was an unusual combination of an artist and a engineer, a very technically oriented guy. He designed water treatment systems for cities around the world and for companies that needed a special kind of water and what have you. But anyway, so I sang in the Tucson, Arizona I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and I sang in the Tucson, Arizona Boys Chorus and traveled the country, literally coast to coast, for 6 years. And so, while you're traveling on a Greyhound bus from concert to concert, you have a lot of time to think and play. And I always enjoyed playing games. And I also collected, I don't know if you're aware of dinky cars. Dinky
cars? No.
They're diecast. They were diecast cars made back in the 50s. Okay. And actually, I think the company was started about 1900. But they were high quality diecast cars, and they were actually before Matchbox as a company. And I would wait outside of the toy store each month for the new car to show up so I could buy it for 50 cents. And I played with Tinker toys and things like that, construction toys. And so I was always playing with stuff, and that stayed with me. I mean, I really loved products. But to answer your question, I think the common theme is these are product-driven industries. You have to have great product, and it doesn't matter how strong your finances or your operations manufacturing team or even your marketing team, but you have to have great product. And so I'm a very product-oriented person, and always liked good product. And for some reason, I felt I had an ability to know whether it was good or not. I started at Mattel on preschool toys, CNCs and Jack in the Boxes and little wooden putt-putt vehicles. And the story that you related about Barbie, one day the founder of Mattel, one of the founders, Ruth Handler, came into my cubicle and she said, "Tom, Barbie sales declined last year. The retailers say it's over for Barbie. The Wall Street analysts say it's over for Barbie. My own sales force says it's over for Barbie. What do you think about that? They said we should go do something else. What do you think?" And I said, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, Ruth. Barbie will be around long after you and I are gone." And she said, "That's what I wanted to hear. I'm going to get you put on the Barbie business now." And before she left my cubicle, I said, "Well, Ruth, what is it about Barbie that makes her so special to you?" And she said, "Tom, with Barbie, a girl can imagine being anything she wants to be." And I thought that was such a great phrase. I used it on packaging and in advertising for the next 15 years. And by the way, they stopped using it for a while, and now they're back to using it again. So Ruth's insight was very, very good about how to save Barbie. What we did was we segmented the market for little kids, for collectors, for high-priced dolls, hair play dolls, role-playing dolls, occupations. We did astronaut Barbie and President Barbie long before anybody thought about those things back in the 70s. So that was how we basically, as you said, saved Barbie.
David, yeah. know,
Yeah.
I love this story. And can you like just to think about like the importance of this, because if at that point you said, okay, yes, let's kill Barbie and let's think in another product, that could have changed the whole history of toys in the world. So yeah, I think a lot of girls are really happy with your vision at that time.
Oh, thank you.
Cool. No, amazing. And I love like seeing, hearing this story and other things that I learned from you. I love the way that you have the ability to, you said that you love product, but also you know really well how to play with all the other elements, like with advertising, with the distribution, the relationship with the retailers. And you have a lot of cases in working for Sega that you have like tough time with retailers as Walmart, but you have like a good strategy behind and you knew how to deal with that. So I love how you play with all the marketing elements. So
Well,
let's fast forward a bit to 1990. And just to give a context to the people that is watching the video, 1990 was a special year for the video game history. So Nintendo was dominating the video game market in the US and Japan. And even the launch of the Sega Genesis in 1988 in Japan, 1989 in the US, was not enough to threaten the leadership position of Nintendo. And you were at that time, like you were working for Matchbox. I don't know if you are that much involved in what was happening in the video game, but I know that you were enjoying your vacation in Hawaii when Hayao Nakayama just appeared. This is a very famous story. He appeared in a beach in Hawaii to invite you to lead Sega of America. So long story short, you accepted. But what was in your mind after you accepted? Did you have a good notion about like the situation of Sega in the US and how complex will be to fight against Nintendo?
Yeah, I did have a pretty good idea of it because remember, I knew Hayao Nakayama from way back from my Mattel days, but also when I was running Matchbox, we had really good distribution in Europe in particular. And Hayao was not happy with how the Master System was being distributed in Europe. And he actually asked me back then to take on the Master System in Europe and have Matchbox distribute it. And I took a look at it, and I looked at, of course, NES as well. And I didn't think that the Master System was strong enough or good enough to compete with Nintendo. So I turned him down. But we had a reasonably good relationship back going way back, even when I was at Mattel, and he was at Sega was owned by Paramount at those times, and we would license things from Paramount, and I'd run into Hayao every now and then. So I've known him for a long time. And also remember when I was at Mattel, we launched the Intellivision system, so I knew a little bit about the video game system. The video game world, the video game market, and I was certainly aware that Nintendo was absolutely dominant in 1990. They had a 98% share of market, and Sega had basically nothing. But I had not seen 16-bit Genesis or Mega Drive, and so when Hayao asked me to join Sega, I said, "Why should I do that?" He said, "Well, you got to come to Japan with me and look at the 16-bit technology. I think you're really going to like it." And also he said, I have a handheld competitor for Game Boy that has a color LCD screen instead of their gray and white or green and black screen. So I flew back to Japan with him, and he was right. I was knocked out by 16-bit technology. I thought it was so much better, so different from Master System and NES. I thought, wow, this really does have a chance. Again, remember, product oriented. This has a chance to be. It's a great product. It looks like a great product, and the software on it looks terrific. So I thought then that I had a chance to compete with Nintendo, and I look forward to that challenge. It took me a while to figure out how to do that, but anyway, that was the reason I accepted.
Yeah. Again, like you saw the potential of the product, and then from the product you built your strategy. And another thing that is also famous is your like four point strategy. Is that correct? That you put in place. So I read a lot about it. So do you think this is one of the key success factor of what you did for the Genesis in the US?
Yeah, absolutely. And I studied the market, and of course I had help. I had guys like Al Nielsen filling me in on what was going on and in the marketing side. I felt the price was too high for Genesis to compete successfully. I felt that too much of the software was very Japanese and not American enough or Western world enough, and we needed to do more product in the U.S. And particularly, I felt there was an obvious advantage that the Genesis had. We could do great sports titles. Why not do sports titles? Football, American football, FIFA soccer, American baseball, basketball, boxing, and let's do sports well and target an older age instead of young boys. Let's leave Nintendo with the 9 to 13-year-old, and let's specifically target teens and college age, primarily initially men. Later we attracted women as well, but it's definitely an older age group. And then the final point was, let's take on Nintendo and make fun of them. Let's position them as the little kid's toy, and we're the product for Big Brother, if you will. And of course, the younger kids would want what Big Brother had anyway. So the strategy, while we were going after an older age group, it worked to attract the younger age group as well. So it was all of those things were the points that I wanted to implement. And when I went back to Japan and presented my plan to the board of directors and to Hayao in Tokyo, they all thought I was nuts. I mean, they thought we can't make money if you lower the price. Oh, and I wanted to take the software that was with the Genesis at the time, with the Mega Drive, was Altered Beast, and it was an attractive title. An arcade game, came out of the arcade world. But in the middle America, Altered Beast sounded like devil worship, and so
Yeah.
I didn't think that was a very good idea. So I said, we got to put our best title in. And Al Nilsson had told me, he'd showed me the early work that was going on what became Sonic the Hedgehog. And I said, when Sonic's available, we want to put Sonic in with the hardware. Well, the board really hated that idea, because not only was I lowering the price and taking profit away, but then I was going to include the best title they had, and that would have been a profitable sale of a software title. But no, I was going to give it away free with the hardware. So they thought that was just crazy. And then of course, taking on Nintendo, they thought was nuts, and nobody would want to do that. So it was a very contentious board meeting, and I think it's related in the film, the documentary film. Hayao got up and said, nobody agrees with anything you said. and he kicked over a chair and started to leave the room. And I thought, well, this was a short career. But he turned at the door and he said, well, when I hired you, I made you a promise that you would be able to make the decisions for the United States and the Western world. So go ahead and do all these things you said. And boy, I sure hope they work. And anyway, needless to say, they did work.
No, that's a fantastic story. I remember when I saw because I saw this documentary, I think at least 3 times. The first time when I was watching it, it created a tension for me because I didn't know the end of the story. So when he left the room, I said, okay, now I don't know if this will end up well, but the results was fantastic. I don't know, and then you can tell me better. So do you think that everything that you did and the success, like in the short term that you get, did Sega of Japan recognize it, everything that you did? So they were so proud of their vision that they never said you, okay, you're doing the right thing. How was this relationship?
Yeah, initially, as we started being successful in the United States, the relationship was quite good. And they did appreciate it. Obviously the sales were terrific. The profitability was terrific. Lots of new titles were being successfully introduced. We fixed the relationship. The company had terrible relationships with the retailers when I joined Sega, because Walmart wouldn't even carry Sega products. Target carried them, but didn't like them. They said that Sega never lived up to its promises, didn't do what they said they were going to do. So the relationship with retail America was awful. So I had to fix that as well. And so Sega Japan appreciated that we got those relationships fixed and straightened out, and things were going very, very well initially. It was a little strange though. Like I would spend money making a new commercial, television commercial. And I'd get these calls from the finance group in Japan saying, well, why are you spending $40,000 on a new commercial? Why don't you just use what we have over here in Japan and dub it into English? And I said, well, why would I want to do that? You guys aren't successful. You got a 5% share of market. Why would I want to do what you're doing over there? And they, of course, didn't like that at all, but it was true. It was true.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And you did with your team, of course, one of the most successful video game advertising of all times, like the remarkable. I think every single generation knows like the advertising and the Sega at the end of the film. So, yeah, Sega is fantastic. I love it. And like for me, and I heard that from you as well when you talked about your reaction when you saw the Genesis, but from a player standpoint, the fourth generation was absolutely fantastic. I think we have been gifted with amazing consoles, not only the Genesis, but if you think that we had the Neo Geo, the TurboGrafx, so it was a like really solid generation. But this period is also known as the console war, the battle between Sega and Nintendo. I think these two brands dominated the conversation. For you, the feeling at that time was to be in a war. And just second question on this, and how was your relationship with Nintendo executives? Mainly Peter Mann was the marketing VP at that time.
Yeah, we didn't like each other. Our relationship, my relationship with Peter was very bad. We often were at the same conferences and had to speak, and usually I would he'd follow me or I'd follow him. And you know, he basically tried to dismiss everything that we were doing and the success we were having. He would say it's not true. They're really not having any impact on us. And you know, I'd have data. I'd have NPD research data that would show how we were increasing share of market. And of course, by 1993, we passed them in share of market. But he just refused to accept that. And several times, we literally almost got in fights. I mean, we were arguing face to face, and you know, I thought we were going to end up with a fist fight. My relationship with Howard Lincoln, Peter's boss, was a little bit better in that, in fact, when I ended up leaving Sega, he sent me a very nice note thanking me for all that I had done for the video game industry. But still, I mean, we were very fierce competitors, and of course, Nintendo tried to keep third-party publishers from publishing their best titles on the Genesis. They would threaten them. They'd say, "Well, if you help Sega out, we're not going to let you have titles on our Super NES system." And they did the same thing with retailers. They would say to Walmart, which surprised me that Walmart would listen to this. But they would say, if you buy Sega products, we won't ship you the amount of hardware or software that you want and need. So they were threatening, and of course that's illegal. You know, first of all, that's predatory business practices, and but they did it, and so we had to overcome all of those kinds of things, and that made me dislike them all the more, frankly. But eventually we won out.
On the documentary, The Console Wars, they say, I don't know if that's true, that Nintendo had a target with you in, I don't know if it was on Peter Mann's door, but they show an image of you on a target. They're throwing darts on you.
Yeah, they threw darts at my face, I guess.
Well, but can you imagine, like in less than 1 year, they saw their leadership like being threatened by you and by Sega? I can imagine how nervous they are, because they thought that they were in an empire with nobody could menace what they are doing.
Yeah, they were very powerful and very tough and very difficult.
Yeah, and just a question here that contains a bit of irony. But who was your biggest competitor, Nintendo or Sega of Japan?
Yeah, it was clearly Nintendo.
Nintendo.
Yeah.
Because I know that I think maybe in 1995, when the Sega was planning to launch the Saturn, and you had a different point of view, maybe that point was a big friction that happened between you and Sega of Japan, right?
That's right. And as I said earlier, you know, early on, I had a very good relationship with Sega Japan. But what I didn't realize was happening was Hayao Nakayama was a very tough guy. He would go into the Monday morning decision meeting and he would beat up the Japanese marketing guys and excuse me, Japanese sales guys and say, how come you're not as successful as Tom is in the United States?
Wow.
Well, you can imagine if you hear that every single Monday, pretty soon you start disliking this guy, Tom.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you don't cooperate with him anymore. Excuse me. You don't give him the things that he needs or help him. And so when I didn't know that was going on, frankly, but I was not a fan of Saturn. My head of R&D was a brilliant guy named Joe Miller, who unfortunately has passed away. And he thought that the next hardware system had to be better than what the Saturn was going to be. Excuse me. And also I thought that we could get another year or two out of Genesis before launching another hardware system. So I was not crazy about doing it. And a number of things happened along the way, the development of Saturn. Initially we were going to launch it in the fall, and then Hayao decided, no, you had to launch it in June and make sure you got it out before Super NES and before Sony and what have you. And I didn't want to do that. We didn't have enough hardware to fill retail shelves, and we certainly didn't have enough software. It had like 3 titles. It was ridiculous. Yeah. So that was a big matter of friction between myself and Hayao and with Japan. I just didn't want to do this. I knew it was not going to work. And it was really that the launch of Saturn, that was the reason I ended up resigning and leaving the company. And I went and did some other things. I did Leapfrog Educational Toys and a number of education companies using video game technology, by the way, to make education fun and interesting.
Yeah, no, that for sure. Yeah, I saw your career after Sega, and you kept building fantastic things. So yeah. And a question for you, because tomorrow I also will interview Stefano Arnaud, that was the Tectoy president in Brazil, who also did an amazing job, like putting the Master System as the market lead in Brazil. So do you know Stefano, and do you have, how was at that time, were you aware of things that were happening in Brazil?
Yes, very much so. Stefano would come and visit quite frequently, actually, and I really liked him. He had a gal who was running marketing, I think, for him. It was also very strong, and the two of them would come visit us here in California. And I liked his planning. I liked the way he was doing things. He was very aggressive, very creative guy, very creative businessman, and I admired him. And so I was very much aware of his success in Brazil and tried to help him as much as I could. I mean, I don't know how much I really was able to, but I would stick up for him, that's for sure, and try to get Sega Japan to help him as much as they could as well. So I know he did an amazing job. I wish that there were more Stefano Arnolds around the world that Sega could have had run their businesses.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if you are aware, but Tectoy is still doing the Master System in Brazil. So I think it's the only country in the world that the console is still being produced. So they keep the brand and they keep a base of consumers alive until today. So it's amazing. Legacy. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, people love him in Brazil, and I see a lot of similarities comparing what you did and what he did. Like clear point of view, knowing very well your market, your consumers, strong relationship with the retailers, a lot of commonalities. I'm happy that in 2 days I'll have the chance to talk to both of you. That's
well,
that's
say hello
fantastic.
for me.
I will.
And yeah, he also used to send me birthday cards on my birthday. I don't know how he knew when my birthday was, but he always did.
I'll tell him tomorrow about this.
Thank him.
Okay, so time is flying by. I have like 2 more questions here, but please let me know if you need to stop.
That's fine.
Yeah. So like 2 very straight questions now. So in your point of view, your opinion, which is the best video game console ever released? Not the best in performance, but the one that really defined the video game history.
Well, I have to always stand up for Genesis Mega Drive. I mean, I love the system. I think it really showed technical prowess. It showed how you could do things better in a video game system. So that to me was the turning point of all that's gone on since in the video game world. And of course, it also attracted, as we said earlier, an older audience. And when I left the video game industry, I think our average age of a player was 21 years of age. Sony the other day said their average age for players like 32. So you can see that this has progressed. It's continued, that the players are sticking with video games longer and playing well into their 30s and 40s. So I'm very pleased about all that. And of course, also the video game industry is now huge. It's the largest form of entertainment in the world. It's twice the size of the movie and music industries combined. I thought it was a $180 billion industry, but I saw an article the other day that said next year they think it's going to be a $220 billion industry.
Yeah,
amazing. US dollars. Amazing, absolutely amazing. So I'm glad that I had an opportunity to be part of all of this growth that occurred in the industry and to change the industry. And I think the Genesis was really the start of all of that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think that you amplified the audience of the universe of players when you started to talk about like teenagers and even older. You basically amplify it. You show it to the world that video game was not just a kid's thing,
not just a kid's product. Although some of the politicians still don't understand that.
Yeah, I agree. And the final question, I know your answer for sure, but my question is Sonic or Mario? I know your question, but please elaborate more on the why. But why do you think your choice is the best one? Also for the history of video game.
Well, obviously, I'm very partial to Sonic the Hedgehog. I think he's a great character. I'm really pleased. I mean, we did a number of things to help build Sonic. Obviously, we did a television show on ABC. We did a television show that was run in the afternoons, weekdays, two different shows, two different style of shows. And what makes Sonic great is that he's this lovable character. He's like the smart aleck kid next door that does a lot of things wrong, gets in a lot of trouble, but in the end, it is always heroic. He always does something very, very good, and he gets out of trouble. He uses his speed to get out of trouble, but he uses his brains as well. And so he's a lovable character with a little bit of an edge to him. He's impatient. He's always tapping his foot and what have you. And
for me, it's fascinating to see that Sonic is still resonating, like the movie, the 1 and the 2. Mario will never have the movie such like this one that Sonic just had.
Well, I think that's again testament to the strength of the character Sonic the Hedgehog. I was very pleased by both movies, and both did very, very well. And remember, a lot of movies have been done around video games, and most of the time they weren't successful. So this is one of the few times where a video game character really was very successful in a movie, as a movie. So very pleased about that as well. Yeah.
All right, Tom, thanks a lot for the conversation. It was great. I could stay here like for 1 hour more because this is a topic that I love to talk. And I hope we can have a next connection to talk a bit more, because I covered just like the surface of everything that you build, your fantastic story. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. Great being with you.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Pô, foi difícil terminar essa entrevista só em 30 minutos, que é o tempo que eu tinha com ele, porque tinha tanto assunto legal para falar. Espero que vocês tenham gostado. Deixo aqui um grande abraço para vocês. Meu muito obrigado pela audiência e até o próximo vídeo.